Hi, good morning. This is a foreigner in the Philippines. Well, we got an early morning today, but the weather has suddenly turned really hot, and boy, um, even I'm sweating, and I don't normally break a sweat, and that's not because I just amble around, because we have plenty to do, but heat just doesn't seem to affect me that much. But lately, it's hot out here and humid. So what are we doing today? Beth is down doing some laundry, and I have my instructions to do several videos. That's the order I get. She plonks the phone down and says, we do our videos on an iPhone, and even though we do have glitches where we don't get the sync right between the voice and the image, well, we do our best. But anyway, she plonks the phone down and then says, do 5 videos. That's the order. And I do what I can. But one of the things that does seem to come up a lot is how crazy is it to go around doing what we do, because literally what we do is we go through our normal daily life, and we work at all of the projects that we have. Well, how do those projects keep coming up, and then more projects and more projects? We don't have to go looking for them. Believe me, they find us. And one of the this is the difference for working in the Philippines, is that in the mountains everybody knows everybody. So I can be going down, driving the truck down with Beth, and we pass somebody on the road. And if we pass anyone, they're going in the same direction, we stop, and if it's just me, I just point to the back, or I point forward, I'm going that way, as you can see, and if the person wants to, they climb in the back of the truck and then hammer on the floor when they want to get off, and it works very well. When it's Beth, she will have a story to tell. Oh yes, that's my that's the father of a schoolmate that I used to go to high school with, and he was trying out to be a policeman, but he's not that good at exams, so he's taken the exam now 5 times, and so I admire him, she'll tell me, because he doesn't give up. He keeps taking that exam and failing it, and taking it and failing it, and I think to myself, well, there's a life that I know a little bit about. So when we go down, everybody seems to be known, and I point over and say, as I did with the family of what we called the secret house in the mountains. That was the house that was just stood by the side of the road on a hill as we passed, and it was never complete. It was just a frame, and so we made up our minds we were going to help on that. Do we know those people? Well, I don't know them, but Beth says, yes, they're from that house over there, and then she points into the distance, and there on a hill, way in the distance, is a house, and I can see that it's inhabited because it has laundry outside. That's my measure of is anybody living in that house? Does it have laundry on the line? Yes, it is. So she will tell me the history. When we first came out, we were walking, and we were walking down to the road. We didn't have a bike then, and I used to see this I called it the abandoned house. And the abandoned house stood a little way off the road, and there were always cows around this particular abandoned house. And I went over to see it, and it was tiny little house, but all of the cladding on the outside was gone, and it was just a bare frame. But it was very, very sad, because it obviously had been planned to have jalousie windows, and the cut glass was still there on the floor. So I said to Beth, you know, what's the story on that? Oh, I don't know. Months later, she'll suddenly say, the family that lived in that house was employed by the man who owns the land. I said, well, just a minute, you said you didn't know about that. Well, I forgot. And then she tells me that the owner of that land gave this house for a family, a poor family, and they could go and live in the house, and for a small amount of money per month they would live in the house and take care of the cows that were around there. Well, what happened was, it started off very well, but after a while the man stopped paying money. So eventually the family left, and as is the way, they took what was owed to them in a different way, and they stripped everything off the house and just left the frame there. And if you think that this is peculiar just to the Philippines, let me tell you, when I was in California and the real estate suddenly took a dive, people were losing their homes, and they were losing their homes for, it seemed like, all the wrong reasons, because they tried to negotiate with landlords or building societies, loan companies, or the banks, and the banks wouldn't deal with them. It was the same for me years later in Florida. So the banks wouldn't deal with them. So what people did was they got mad, and when they were on their way out, they're looking, you know, they've got to get out of the house, and they're being evicted, I guess, or certainly got to get out. And they'd look around, and they'd look around at the beautiful bathroom that they worked so hard to and saved to put in, and the thought would be, well, we can't take it with us. What are we going to do? Well, for the price of a hammer, they did take the bathroom with them, and they smashed it all to pieces. But the funny one, which I know it's not really funny, but what they did, the last thing that they were doing, I guess, as they loaded up the U-Haul to go God knows where, they took the front door, which I thought was quite funny. So anyway, so always you got these stories, and when we come along and had this idea that we could help, and then we found that by telling our stories about what we were seeing here in this country, people began to say, well, I could help on that. And what made it easy was the fact that, as one man said when we built one house, my God, it cost more to do my front porch than that house. And so for not too many dollars and not too many pounds, somebody out there could enable us to actually rehouse a family. And if you were with us just before Christmas, our goal then was 3 houses for Christmas. And with the help of the people that were touched and impassioned by our goal, we were able to do it, and we rehoused 3 families before Christmas. One of them was the 3 little girls' house, and the other the paralysed man's house, and the other was Beanie's house. And Beanie has since become a worker on our Superman team for getting these houses built. Now, obviously along the way we get criticisms. We've always looked at it that we should help family. Family is very, very important in the Philippines, so we give employment, but we don't give handouts of other people's money. The Superman team work damn hard for their money, and they get things done, and it's a win-win situation all around. Now, if you're ever in doubt about who is who, well, you just ask Nanai, and Nanai knows everybody. And when I see a motorcycle with, say, 3 people sitting on it, riding through our property, and I do the foreigner and say, what the hell is this? You know, I've got motorcycles riding past the front door. And Beth said, well, you can't say anything about that. That's Nanai's cousin. See? So everybody knows about everybody, and they all know who did what, and they know the history. Ah, yes. Well, that was when my uncle sold off that land, and there's a story, and they always come to light. And I always feel a bit foolish, because sometimes I say, how do you know? And they say, well, Nanai knew them from a long, long time ago when Tata was here. Tatai, I should say. That's father, when Beth's father was alive, and he knew this person and that person. Beth's family has lived on this hill for 50 years or more. Beth's mom and her father moved on to a bare piece of land up where we now live, and they built a tiny house as a temporary place. And believe me, when you see our projects on the houses that we build, some of the houses we built in a week. In a week, we've actually changed someone's life. Well, Beth's mum and dad came up here, and Beth's mum had her first child, which is Pastor Timio, at the age of, I think, 17. And the way that they met is quite a romantic story as well, because Beth's father was working making firewood for the father of Nanai, and he came and he saw this young girl and fell in love with her, and he was a good worker, and he proposed, and they married, and they came up and lived on this hill. And they didn't have a carabao, they didn't have any help, and he levelled the top of this hill practically by hand. And then he went over to another place while he was working, and he mined for gold. And when I say he mined for gold, don't imagine that it was like a Klondike thing where he was digging into the earth like a gopher or something. There's a place where they can go, and there's a certain amount of gold dust in the land, I'm guessing, and they could get a tiny, tiny amount. So for a lot of hours that they put in, they managed to scrape together enough gold to be able to buy their carabao. And once the carabao was here, they were able to level the land off with a hand plough, and their life started to evolve. And what they didn't know at that time was that Tatai, the father, had a drinking problem. He was a good man, good work ethic, but the booze was there as a problem. Anyway, he used to have these binges, and he would go off with a shopping list for the family, and the next day, when he hadn't come home, they'd go out and look, and they would find him out on the ground somewhere close to the house, and the shame had made it so he couldn't come home. He wasn't so drunk that he didn't realise that he was doing something wrong. Well, it's an incredible story, because what happened was he was out in the rice field one day. He already had quite a few children. Don't forget, Beth is one of 10 children. So they're up on this hill. This ground, I believe this land was given to them by the father, by Nanai's father, I think, and they came up and made their life here. So he's realizing as he was in one of the little shelters that they have in the rice fields, and he was resting the carabao, and he's thinking to himself that he couldn't go on like this. He realized that he had to change. So he started to think how he could do this. And that's when what I call divine intervention comes in. I call it divine intervention, but then as most people think of me as a non-believer, they'll be saying, oh, you mean the Lord? Yes, okay, your word or my word. So he realized that this was just no good. He couldn't keep doing this. They would send him out to buy fish or some other grocery for the money that he'd just earned, say, and they would find him drunk on the ground with a bag that had the bottom torn out of it, that he'd walked along in a stupor and not been able to control what was happening. The bag was torn and the groceries would be left God knows where. So he's in this moment of enlightenment, and he realizes that he can't do it on his own. Now, for those of you who believe in Jesus, for those of you who believe in the Lord, for those of you who believe in enlightenment and common sense, or however you believe it, something happened in his thinking, and he had a shaft of light that entered into his mind. Be it the Lord or however you want to think of it is fine by me. I'm not interpreting, I'm just telling the story. And as he walked home that day, he saw a man, a neighbour, that he knew little of, but just to say hello. And he called to him and he said, "Do you have a religion?" And the man said, "Yes, I do." And he said, "Does it prohibit drinking and smoking?" And the man said, "Yes." So, whether there was more to that conversation or not, I don't know. But Tatai went home. And the next day, that man came with several other people from his church, and they talked to Tatai, and they told him about what they believed in, and they shared their beliefs in the Lord. So, that Sunday, Tatai took his, I think at that time, 7 children, and they went to the born-again Christian, the born-again gospel church, which was something that he'd passed and never gone into, a little tiny church, hand-built with hollow block and a tin roof. And he went there, and now he had a religion which stood at his back. He left what was then for him the Catholic religion, and now he had a discipline to work to, and this saved him. So from that day on, he never ever drank another drop. Now, the funny human touch to this is that he couldn't quite give up smoking, but smoking was banned as well. So what happened was that they sort of kept this as a secret, and Nana used to go to the market, and she'd go down to a taffy, and she'd go to the market, and she'd look around like this, and she'd make sure that no one was watching, that knew her, and she would buy the tobacco leaves. Well, the tobacco leaves are much better for you than cigarettes, which contain arsenic or some other chemical which keeps them burning so that you don't make them last too long. That's the manufacturer's interest being catered to. So he used to roll the cigarettes himself, and he smoked them secretly from his pastor, I guess. And life changed drastically then. And there's much more to Tata and Nana's story, which actually I'm in the process of writing. And everything took on a different light, and they lived according to the Bible, and they lived a different life. And in this case, this was what they needed to save their family, and it did. So, I'm only the messenger. I'm not talking about whether what you should do or whether you should do this. I'm simply telling you an incredible story. That's what always attracts me. And now Tata is gone. He died, I think, of pneumonia, and I guess he could have been saved, but back then things were different. This is a few years ago. I think maybe 3 or 4 years ago he died. It's in recent memory. So he is sadly missed. Apparently was a good, strong man with a great work ethic, and had the final realization that he had to change, and he did so for his family, and everybody benefited. So I wanted to share that story. Kind of went on from that, from the helping. But the crazy part about our helping, just to finish off what the original theme was, the crazy part about our helping is that it is part of a much bigger picture. When you go and you do random acts of kindness, they have a much bigger effect than you think. And when Beth and I were driving down to the road the other day, I said to Beth, you know, this what we do might seem crazy to a lot of people, and it's suspected by a lot of people who don't believe that anything like this can happen. Nobody does this for nothing, because we work, at the moment, we work 24/7 on doing what we do. And I told Beth that I believed that what we're doing is part of a much bigger picture than we can actually realize, because what you have is a situation where people from lots of different parts of the world are giving up the money and power to effect a great change in someone's life. Now, the latest 2 little houses, we've called them rag houses. The 2 little houses that we've just looked at, the living conditions of those families are pitiful. Now, I know that there will be righteous thinking people there who will be only too willing to tell me, feed a man a fish and you'll feed him for a day, teach him how to fish and you'll feed him for his life. Boy, I wish I had $1 for every time I've heard that. In the end, in the beginning, sometimes it takes an act of kindness out of the blue, coming from someone that you don't even know, who asks nothing in return, to change your life. Sometimes the smallest thing can change a person's life. And I'm not preaching, I'm just trying to share something that came to me, a little bit like Tata, resting in the field in the sun, realizing that he had to change for his family, for everything, for himself. He had to change, and change is the big thing. Now, how do you effect a change? Well, I told you before that sometimes I would go to the Cape Coral toll, and I'd get to the toll gate and somebody in front of me had paid my toll. It's only a couple of dollars, okay? But they'd committed a random act of kindness, and that had a huge effect on me for the rest of the day. Why would somebody do something like that? And the answer is because it made them feel good, and it had an effect on someone that they didn't even know, just by being kind. So anybody out there who's looking at this, probably there'll be two sides of a line. One will be, yeah, crazy, stupid. And the other one will be, maybe I can do something in my life, in my surroundings, in my environment, that might change somebody's life in a way that is impossible to calculate. In other words, behind any action may be a much bigger picture than even you understand or grasp, even though you may be the person who is initiating that change. Out there we have, we are now on our 13th house. We go to Dubai today to look at the work in progress of our 13th house. We've given those houses for no return, on no condition, and we've done that. We've been able to do that only because people have trusted us to do as we have said. And as I've said on many occasions, the way that we show that your trust is warranted is by doing a video, step by step, a video. This is how it's going now, and then at the end of it we'll show you who, even if it's a code name, who gave this much money, that much money, and this is how it worked. And it's not hard to understand this if you follow the story through. So one story after another, and every one of these houses has a story, and we've shared that story, and we must have done a good job of sharing that story because people said, I'd like to help on this. And that's what it's all about. And that's the bigger picture that we're looking at, and that's the bigger picture of which we can all be part. And maybe this may be nothing to do with you and the Philippines. You may have just hit on this and say, what the hell is this guy talking about? Who is he? Or you may be like the person that wrote to me and said, I've wasted 2 years of my life in front of the television set, and now I've watched most of your videos and have realized that I can make a change in someone's life. And he thanked us for bringing him to his senses. And very soon he plans to go off, I think, to Cambodia, and he's already organized a team who can help him to do good works for people in similar situations to what we help now. People who can't get any lower, must live a life of desperation, and yet they can be helped. And we think having a house, a small, tiny, but secure little house, is a good start. That's our belief, and we're just operating on our belief. Maybe wrong, maybe right. Maybe I should be out teaching them to fish, as if I know. And that's what we're doing. We're doing what we can with what we have. It's not us, we're not the heroes. I always say that we're not the heroes. We are simply people, two people, who are doing the best we can with what we have. So, that's my little splurge for this morning. We're going to go to Dubai fairly soon. I might have to make 4 other videos before I do this. But anyway, this is a foreigner in the Philippines. Thanks for looking in. Bye for now.